Good morning, everyone. Those of you who are here for day 2 of Antiquarianism in the Islamic world, and those of you watching around the world or in the future on BGC TV, just to let you know that all the participants spent the entire night in this room talking about the same material, and we're all set for a second refreshed day. I'm not going to try and summarize what we did yesterday. We will have those who are participating in the conference will have the chance at lunch to sit around the table and while we eat do some hard work thinking about the shape of this project and how it could take a literary form. So I'm not going to try and do that here, but I do want to make a couple of points, just some direction. And before I do that, I want to acknowledge, I did this yesterday, but now that Saran Trehan is in the room, I just want to thank her in particular for the contribution that she and Ravi have made to the Bari Graduate Center and really making this kind of research possible. And not just this, when I say this kind of research, what I mean is something akin to basic research. That's to say, the exploration of projects that don't have let's say, an immediate application, that aren't working through problems that are old problems, but are actually trying to explore new questions to get in the seams between existing discourses and treat the seams as the subject as opposed to just the residue from other more important discourses. So a couple of points that came up yesterday in different ways that I want to vocalize in that, or in order to maybe help us work efficiently. One is, I think we came to some conclusion yesterday that Islamicate is a better word for what we're talking about than Islamic. And by the way, you can all look at me in disbelief and feel that I'm misconstruing everything that happened yesterday. That's totally fine. We can talk about that later. Another very important sort of crux in the discussion was the whole question of the role of Europe and Europeanness. And that's, I think, something that we should talk about. We're not, and I tried to make this clear in the introduction yesterday, we're not looking to find an exact copy of European developments. That's intellectually bizarre thing to try and do. What we're looking to do, and it's a kind of delicate operation, which is why I felt the need to summon the late Wittgenstein for help. What we're trying to do is to use a fairly clear existing model, almost the way you might put a catalyst into a solution to produce something else, right? What we're looking to is to take something that's clear and use it to help clarify something else which is at the moment not clear, right? And exactly the shape of what may occur from the introduction of the catalyst into the solution is something that remains to be determined, right? But that was the purpose of it. And so I'm going to actually just go over again, repeat some of the things that I mentioned yesterday as features in the European model that may or may not be useful in this role of catalyzing something else. There's the sense of the past, the question of ruins and what ruins can do, attraction to old things. Felipe Rojas talks about this as archaeophilia in his 2017 Introduction to the Antiquarianisms volume from Brown. Sense of distance. A word that didn't come up yesterday, which I think could be useful, it was something that functioned very well in this context in the comparison with China, is rupture. Right, the role of rupture. For the Europeanists, it was the disappearance of Latin and then the recovery of Latin in the Renaissance, and the way in which the perception that language itself had altered communicated a sense of distance and therefore triggered a need to recover, to cross that distance. So sense of rupture, is that essential to this antiquarian practice? Collecting is a feature, maybe not in itself the only marker of antiquarianism, and there are people who were antiquarians who did not have collections, and yet collecting and objects is certainly part of that family resemblance that we talked about. Curiosity is a part of it, not, again, like collecting, not a marker in and of itself. Reconstruction is important. Comparison, going back and forth between texts and things for mutual clarification and illumination. The development of specific subfields, subfields of evidence, like the Hilfswissenschaften, whether it's studies of weights and measures, or genealogy, or numismatics, ceramic shapes, handwriting studies. We talked about spoliation, came up a lot yesterday. That's something that is certainly part of it. So these are all, I think, touchstones that might make it easier to give some contour to what we're talking about. And then I want to just one more point that came up in the discussion of Al-Hamdani yesterday, and that was the role of writing, the question of non-narrative forms, and by extension, the role of genre as a possibility. So not themes like ajaib, not necessarily looking for wonders, but looking for forms of writing that are non-narrative. Some that came up in the case of Al-Hamdani himself, genealogy had its clear non-narrative form. But what about, just to give some other examples, and some of these I'm thinking about medieval China as well. So administrative guides to provinces that are organized spatially, or discussions of communication networks, agricultural, techniques of agriculture, or hydrology might be another way to think about this. So treatises that might be organized in terms of space writing as opposed to time writing might be another. They wouldn't be antiquarian necessarily, but they would be cognate ways of writing about things that might be helpful in terms of opening up ways of thinking of this subject and defining its contours. So these are non-prescriptive. I throw them out, taking advantage of my role as co-organizer of this project, in the hope that they will be useful and stimulate some kind of response, whether in this morning session or indeed at the lunch afterwards, or as we all spend the rest of our lives processing this event. So I will stop there, as I'm sure we will. I'm going to stop here and turn the podium over to Abby to begin the formal proceedings this morning. Thanks.